Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into what makes us tick, exploring the basic rules, the laws of human nature.
Yeah, our mission today is to help you move past feeling confused or helpless when dealing with people and instead build a solid framework for understanding yourself and others. Maybe even achieve a bit of self-mastery.
We're drawing on some fascinating source material that basically challenges our biggest assumption about ourselves.
Right, the idea that we're these rational beings always acting out of free will, the core argument. We're actually much more susceptible to moods, emotions, group dynamics, that sort of thing.
And here's the real kicker, the paradox.
hmm
Even with all our tech, our science, the sources say we've never been more tangled up in our own basic human nature, its destructive side even.
It's pretty stark when you think about it. We've got access to endless information, but look at how we behave collectively. Social media seems to amplify everything, the tribalism, the emotional reactions.
So it's like ancient wiring running on hyperspeed internet.
Exactly. Makes the potential for problems much greater.
So that really forces us to start right there, doesn't it? Challenging this whole idea of rationality.
Yeah. Let's look at an old example. The sources bring up Pericles back in Athens, watching the politicians.
Okay, these were sharp guys,
Yeah.
running the democracy, making plans.
Totally. And every single one of them was convinced they were operating logically. They had detailed, realistic seeming plans.
But the result.
Chaos. Self-destruction, ultimately.
So what was Pericles' insight?
He realized they weren't truly rational. They were just incredibly clever at serving their base emotions. Things like hunger for attention, power, money.
So short-term tactical brilliance.
Exactly. But long-term, totally self-defeating because emotion was really in the driver's seat.
That really highlights this internal conflict, this tension the sources call the two selves.
The lower self and the higher self.
We've all felt that, I think. Like when you snap at someone, say something sharp you didn't mean to.
And you immediately think, why did I say that?
Yeah. What is that?
That's the lower self kind of bubbling up, leaking out. It's where our impulses live, our quick emotional reactions, the need for immediate gratification, even losing ourselves in a crowd.
And the higher self.
That's the ideal, right? The reasonable, thoughtful person we aspire to be. The regret you feel is the higher self kind of waking up after the lower self has already acted out.
And this lower self, it's rooted in some pretty ancient stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Deep, primitive instincts. Like our tribal wiring, that instant need to categorize people, insider or outsider.
Us versus them.
Yeah. And maybe even stronger is the drive for status, constantly ranking ourselves, measuring our worth by where we fit in the hierarchy. The sources point out you can see this clear as day in chimpanzees.
Wow, chimpanzees. So if we recognize that deep wiring, does that mean most online arguments aren't really about facts?
That's a key insight. Often it's a proxy fight over status, who's up, who's down. Recognizing that helps you avoid getting sucked in. You see the real game underneath the so-called rational debate.
Okay, so we're not as rational as we think. What are the big mental traps we fall into then? The sources mention group bias first. Why is fitting in so powerful?
Well, think about it from an evolutionary perspective. For a social animal, isolation is dangerous. It feels threatening.
Right, safety in numbers.
Exactly. So we feel this huge sense of relief when we find a group that accepts us and shares our ideas. The bias comes in because we adopt the group's ideas to get that relief, to avoid the fear of being alone.
So it's not always deep analysis driving our beliefs?
Often not. Look at political ideologies. People line up on dozens of complex issues, not always because they've analyzed each one, but because, belonging to the tribe means accepting the whole package. It becomes an orthodoxy.
The need to belong overrides the need to think critically. Okay. And the second big one, conviction bias.
Yeah, this is about leadership or maybe demagoguery. We're really susceptible to people who present half-truths with a lot of passion, heated words, strong gestures.
Why do we fall for that?
We tend to mistake that intense conviction for, certainty born from careful thought. If someone sounds really sure, really passionate, we assume they must know what they're talking about.
And nuance gets seen as weakness.
Yeah, exactly. Hesitation, seeing multiple sides, that can come across as weak or uncertain, even if it's actually more thoughtful.
But hold on, isn't conviction sometimes good? Like in a crisis, don't we need leaders who can make quick, certain-sounding decisions?
We do need decisiveness, absolutely. But the skill is learning to tell the difference between genuine, earned conviction and conviction used as a tool, for manipulation.
So the louder they shout.
The more skeptical you should probably be. It takes discipline to pause and think, okay, their certainty isn't actually evidence that they're right.
Okay, so we understand our own internal mess a bit better. How do we apply this to understanding others? Decoding the masks people wear.
Right, because we're all actors, essentially. We put on a front. Confident, humble, whatever, to navigate socially and hide our insecurities, maybe our darker impulses, the shadow personality.
That mask is kind of necessary, isn't it, for society to function smoothly?
It is. But the danger is mistaking the mask for the actual person. Because if you do that, you'll be blindsided when their real feelings inevitably surface.
And the sources say these feelings, they leak out.
Constantly. We have this deep need to communicate what's really going on inside, even if we try not to. So you have to become a better reader of people beyond their words. Words often hide things.
Okay, so what do we look for? Nonverbal cues.
Definitely. Start with dislike or discomfort. If you surprise someone, especially someone who might not like you, you can sometimes catch these tiny fleeting signs of negativity before they get their friendly mask back on.
Like a quick eye roll they try to cover up. Or a flash of coldness.
Exactly. That's the truth. Escaping for a split second. Then look for dominance and submission cues.
How do those show up?
Dominant people might act entitled to your time showing up late, interrupting, talking way more than listening. And a really subtle but powerful one is the tight smile. It looks friendly, but there's tension. It can signal contempt or superiority, hiding behind politeness. It's like a social weapon.
Okay, those are signs of friction or hierarchy. What about connection? Is there a key sign when someone's guard is down?
Yes, the sources call it synchrony, unconscious mirroring.
Mirroring, yeah.
When someone starts to genuinely agree with you or you're building rapport, they might lean in when you do, unfold their arms if yours are unfolded, even cross their legs the same way.
Without realizing it.
Totally unconscious. At the deepest level, breathing patterns can even start to sync up. When you see that synchrony, it means resistance has pretty much dissolved.
Fascinating. But we're not just reading fleeting moments, are we? We need to understand deeper character patterns.
Right. The sources argue people tend to repeat the same kinds of decisions, the same mistakes, because of their underlying character. It's described as being stamped into us, almost like an engraving.
And where does that stamp come from?
A lot of it starts really early, with our first relationships, our attachment patterns with caregivers.
How so?
Well, for instance, if a parent was really inconsistent, sometimes smothering, sometimes cold and distant, that enmeshed ambivalent style, the child learns they constantly have to manage the parent's emotions just to feel secure.
So they learn that love means constantly managing or fixing someone else.
Pretty much. And that creates a deep pattern, a memory trace that shapes their adult relationships. They might be drawn to partners they feel they need to fix or take care of.
Okay, how do we actually see someone's core character then? Beyond their everyday mask?
The stress test, this is crucial. When people are under real pressure, rising pressure, that carefully constructed social mask just drops.
The cool composure disappears.
Completely. Reason gets overwhelmed, the primitive brain takes over, and their true flaws surface. Maybe paranoia, maybe hypersensitivity, maybe they lash out. Wise people make a point of observing how others handle stress. It tells you a lot.
That feels vital for protecting yourself. Knowing who to avoid getting tangled up with. The sources mention some toxic archetypes, like the drama magnet.
Ah, yes, the drama magnet. Often they learned early on that the surest way to get intense, sustained attention, maybe even feel loved, was by having constant problems, constant crises.
They create conflict.
They thrive on it. They need it to feel alive or validated. They're always creating confrontations, dramas, and crucially, they always position themselves as the innocent victim.
So spotting them means looking at the pattern over time, not just one bad situation.
Exactly. Look at their life story. Is it a series of dramatic breakups, intense feuds, jobs lost in flames, where the blame is always pointed outward? That's a red flag.
Okay. And the other one mentioned is the big talker.
Oh, the big talker. You know this type. They impress you with grand visions, huge projects, complex ideas.
Ambitious.
They want the status that comes with being a visionary. But deep down, they're often terrified of the actual hard work, the sustained effort needed to make those visions real.
So what happens?
They rarely finish anything significant, and when things inevitably fall apart, the pattern is clear. They blame everyone else, the market, their partners, the team. Bad luck. Never their own lack of follow-through.
Recognizing that pattern of grand talk, zero action, and constant blame.
Yeah.
That's the signal to steer clear.
Run for the hills, yes.
All right, this is powerful stuff for observation. But let's shift gears. How do we move from just seeing these patterns to actually improving ourselves and influencing situations better? Section 3, self-mastery and influence.
Okay. The absolute first step, according to the sources, is inward. Know thyself.
Why start there?
Because that emotional lower self we talked about, it loves ignorance. It operates best when you're unaware of it. So the path to becoming more rational isn't about denying emotion. It's about understanding your own emotional triggers and patterns.
How do we actually do that? Just reflect.
Reflect specifically on your own recurring weaknesses, especially under stress. When things get tough, what's your default reaction? Do you become desperate to please? Do you shut down and mistrust everyone, try to control everything?
Look at the mistakes you keep making.
Yes, the ones you regret. Trace them back. What's the underlying insecurity or fear that seems to drive that pattern? The moment you bring awareness to it, you create distance. It starts to lose its automatic grip on you.
Okay, self-awareness first. Then what? The sources talk about empathy.
Right. We all have this incredible capacity for empathy, for understanding others' feelings, but it often gets blocked by our natural self-absorption, our basic narcissism. We're mostly focused on ourselves.
So we need to consciously turn that focus outward.
Exactly. Transform self-love into empathy. And it's sort of a two-part skill. First is physical empathy.
What's that?
It's tuning into the feeling, the atmosphere, the intention behind someone's words, not just the words themselves. Like, if someone suddenly starts being incredibly interested in your personal life, asking lots of questions, is that genuine warmth? Or does it feel like they're maybe softening you up before asking for a big favor? Pay attention to the feeling they create in you.
Got it. Tune into the vibe, not just the text. What's the second part?
Analytic empathy. This one's harder. It means cultivating enough distance to objectively analyze people you might naturally resist or even dislike.
How can you be empathetic towards someone you dislike?
You force yourself to detach mentally. Instead of seeing their annoying actions as personal attacks, you try to see them as predictable outcomes of their fears, their insecurities, their character patterns.
So stop judging and start diagnosing.
Precisely. It gives you clarity. That's why Abraham Lincoln reportedly said, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." Knowledge is the antidote to that resistance.
That analytical distance sounds key for influence, too. The sources are pretty clear. Don't argue, lecture, or try to force people.
Yeah.
Why is that approach usually doomed?
Because it instantly puts people on the defensive. Arguing basically says, you're wrong, I'm right. It triggers their lower self, their status anxiety. Resistance goes way up.
Okay, so what's the alternative if we want to persuade someone?
You have to make them feel secure first. Validate their self-opinion, mirror their values, make them feel understood and appreciated, lower their defenses.
And then?
Frame whatever you're proposing entirely in terms of their self-interest, not yours. What's in it for them?
And you can't just fake that, can you?
No, you have to genuinely couch your idea in the language of their established values, their worldview. Even if you don't share those values, if they value stability above all, you frame your risky idea as the only path to long-term stability. If they crave recognition, you show how the quiet, hard work leads to massive future acclaim. You meet them where they are.
Makes sense. Okay, one last big topic. Aggression. The sources say it's natural, we can't just repress it.
Yeah, trying to deny it just means it'll pop out sideways, often destructively. The key isn't suppression, it's channeling that energy in a mature, rational, productive way.
Like the sophisticated aggressor example, John D. Rockefeller.
Exactly. He was incredibly aggressive in business, but rarely through overt force or yelling. He played the long game. He let his rivals be emotional, impulsive.
While he stayed cool.
Cool. Analytical. He'd feed their arrogance, maybe isolate them, sow a little doubt or panic, until they basically defeated themselves emotionally and sold out cheap. He turned raw competitive drive into strategy.
So how do we practice channeling our own aggression constructively, especially if we tend to avoid conflict?
Start small. Practice everyday self-defense, basically. Most of us let small moments of disrespect or insensitivity slide because we fear confrontation.
True.
The advice is to consciously train yourself to speak up in those small moments. Politely but firmly push back when someone's out of line, just reclaiming that little bit of space.
What does that do?
You start to realize the sky doesn't fall. You actually gain respect. And it helps you reclaim that natural assertiveness, that fearlessness, channeling the aggressive energy into setting boundaries instead of letting it fester or worse, explode inappropriately later.
Okay, that brings us toward the end. So the big takeaway from mastering all these laws,
Hmm.
it isn't about somehow fixing everyone else's irrationality, is it?
No, that's impossible and would just make you constantly frustrated. The real goal is more like radical acceptance.
Acceptance.
Yeah, stop judging people. Stop wishing they were different. Try to see them with all their flaws and patterns as just facts. Neutral phenomena, like comets or plants. They just are.
That sounds calming, actually.
It is. It stops you from getting emotionally triggered by them, from projecting your own stuff onto them, and it frees up mental space for clear, strategic thinking about how to navigate the reality of who they are.
Accept people as facts.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, let's wrap up with that provocative final thought the sources leave us with. It's about mortality.
Right. The idea is that we often kind of dance around the thought of our own death. We procrastinate, scatter our energy, act like we have unlimited time.
Denial, basically.
Yeah. But the suggestion is to flip that. Think of your mortality not as something to fear and avoid, but as a kind of continual deadline.
A deadline.
Mm-hmm. What happens to your focus, your priorities, your willingness to take necessary risks if you truly internalize the shortness of life? Even a long life is finite, and time speeds up.
How does that connect to freedom?
Because that awareness can compel you to commit fully to what matters, your work, your relationships. It helps neutralize the petty fears, the evasions, the distractions that otherwise waste our precious time. It focuses the mind, It brings urgency and maybe even a deeper kind of freedom.